Welcome to Handson with Jota. Today we are going to take a look into asynchronous coding and working with promises, callbacks, and async and await. So the thing is the following. First comes first, we need to know what is asynchronous, why we are going to be using these kind of things, right? So let's go with an example of real life, right? Let's say by some reason you're going to be doing a barbecue, right? You are going to be making some barbecue there, and you like to do your barbecue, and in the same time that you're making the fire, you're making all these kind of things, you are going to be saying, I want to have a drink while I wait for the barbecue to be done. So saying this, you see, we're trying to do two different kind of operations, and we don't want to wait for something to happen in order to do something else. So the same happens a lot in regards to the browser. At some point you want to keep on working in different things in your browser, and you want to let the browser to keep on doing things in the meanwhile something else is happening. So you're going to be able to take your drink while the food is getting ready for you, and you want to wait for this food to take your drink, basically. So that's in regards to asynchronous events. We don't want them in the same timeline, we can say, at some point, right? So saying this, we are going to come up with a very simple example in regards to this, and this is going to be the following example. Const, we're going to say, for example, I have some examples here and there, as you can see. Let's say call API, right? And this call API is going to be going to from the browser into the server, and this server is going to be doing certain operations for you. So you don't want to wait for them to happen. You're going to keep on doing your own things in the browser, letting the user use your page and so on. So we're going to have the following. We're going to call it function, so it's going to be a bit more easy to read at some point, right? And this function is going to have here set timeout. We're going to return from this function a new. Now we're going to say that's going to receive a callback. This is the first solution, right? Solution with callback. So we are going to say set timeout, and then you're going to do the following. We're going to do another function just to make it a little bit more thorough at some point, right? So we can see some of the problems with this kind of approach at some point. Say 2 seconds to simulate the call to the API. Finish the call to API, and then we're going to say callback. So now we're going to do the following. We're going to say call API, then we're going to say we're going to pass to this call API another function. I'm going to write the whole word function instead of doing a arrow function. I'm just going to do the whole word function just to make it a bit more clear. Function callback. There we are. So you see, first it finished the call to the API, and then it says doing something cool with the information of the API, with the API information. So this is one of the oldest strategies to work with asynchronous coding. You are going to be able to pass to this function a callback, and this callback is going to be able to execute whatever you need to execute afterwards. This is okay, but as you can see, if you start passing functions to functions to functions, this is going to get more and more complicated. So Let's go to another approach. Let's see how it goes. This one is going to be in regard to promises. So we're going to say the following. We're not going to pass any callback here, right? I'm going to call it function here. I'm not going to. So we're going to say return new promise, and this promise has 2 arguments when you create it. Actually, it has 1 argument, which is going to be the sorry. You have 1 argument, which is going to be another function which has resolve and reject. So if something goes good, you give the resolve, and something goes bad, you can give it reject. At this point, we are just going to show the resolve. And then we're going to make the set timeout, which is going to execute let's say the following. Let's say the string finish the call to API, the same the one that was before, and then it's going to be after 2 seconds, right? And we're going to resolve it with this, right? That's what we said that we were going to do. So then we can close the promise, and there we are. So we have a call, an API that is going to with promise. Actually, it is not very well expressed here with a promise example, right? So call API, and then we're going to see what's going on there. It's going to be pending. So I'm going to say then console log, and that's going to be pending, and after 2 seconds it's going to say finish the call to API. But then I want to do something else, like saying it's going to have another function which is going to say console log doing something cool with API information. So it goes first one, and then goes the second one. So you see, you're having a little bit of a different approach in regards to what comes with the callback. You're not in the callback, you're passing this function inside of this function to be executed after a certain amount of time. In this case, you're not. You're just giving back a promise, right? Like this one. And after a certain amount of time, you're going to resolve that promise with something that has happened after 2 seconds. This is going to give you something that's going to be pending. And whenever it actually finishes, you're going to do some things with this information. For example, in this case, I'm making a console log, and then I'm going to be doing something else, which is going to be another function that's going to be doing something else. So you see, this is another kind of solution which is going to be more linear, and it's going to be concatenating different kind of events with these denables, right? Like saying, first I do something, then I should do something else. But let's suppose that you have a big system, right? And having these kind of structures like this, it is called at some point spaghetti callback. The reason is because passing these kind of functions and getting executed inside of this can get a bit complicated at some point to see and spot how to debug these problems, right? While this one is a bit more linear, and the call API promise example does not care about any kind of callback or execution of anything that's from the outside of this timeout, right? So the thing is this separation of concerns in regards to what should one function do. And this function should know about himself and not being executing code of someone else. So that's in regards to maintainability. That's in regards to this particular case of promises, right? And the concatenation of these different events, which are going to be asynchronous situations, could be the taking of a drink and then taking the food and so on, and these kind of things that are from real life. You can concatenate them like this, right? Let's go to another example, and this is going to be the last one. Let's say that you have here async. Let's say that you have API call, another API call, and this API call is going to be also, let's call it just function, so as to make it a bit more clear instead of making the arrow function, because just to not make things, I know it is a bit more verbose at some point, but I think it is a bit more clear than the arrow in this particular example, right? So we're going to simulate a call to another API, right? So we're going to say return of a new promise, and this is going to be again with the resolve. We're just going to do the resolve in this case. Set timeout, and this timeout always gets handler and the timeout, which is going to be getting the resolution, the finish of the call to API, then the time, then we close it, and then we close the other one. So we have here a very simple simulation of a certain call to an API. One form to actually resolve this kind of problem, if you have to simulate one of these calls, is just calling promise.resolve, which is another solution, right? But this is just to simulate a certain amount of time, which is going to be the asynchronous event, right? And the network calling at some point to get this information. So now we have the following. We have we're going to have an asynchronous we're going to have a certain async example, right? So as you can see, we have here, and we are going to say the following: const result equals to the await of another API call, and then we're going to say console log of the result, and then we're going to say console log done, and then we're going to say return something else. So async example. And then it's going to have this promise that's going to be pending. Then it's going to be calling the finish of the call to API, and it's going to be done. So you see, here's another example that asynchronous functions are also returning promises, but there is something missing here, which is the something else. So let's call it again, and then you can say then console log, and then it's going to say finish of the call to API. It's going to do his own things, and it's going to give you back the something else. That's going to be the thing that's going to come then afterwards, right? So you see, you're starting to organize your things and of your asynchronous events or your asynchronous coding in terms of async and await, promises, and callbacks, right? So the idea for this one is that you have some differences in regards to in regards to promises, async and await. And these are pretty much interesting ones. For example, the way that you resolve the problems of handling errors, for example. When you try to handle errors with async and await, you're going to have to use the try catch block, right? Right, and then you're going to have your own try catch there. This is the classical way to handle async and await things. So you're going to have this await of this async example, which is going to be wrapped with this try catch, and when something goes wrong, you're going to catch it and you're going to do something else, or you're going to make more rich this error handling, right? Which is a very cool thing if you can do so. And in the case of when you're working with pure promises and you want to know what's happening there, you can also say catch. When you do it in this format, you can say catch console.error, right? And then it's going to do the same thing as before, but if something goes, let's try it out. Let's try to, instead of doing this, oops, something went wrong. Promise, it resolves the very first step, says finish of the call to the API, done, and then it explodes and says oops. So as you can see here, we are going to, and it's not making a console log, it's making a console error. That's the reason that you can see it like this. And you can click here and it's going to take you to this part. So intention with this one is that you can see a little bit of how it's handling in regards to the try catch of these kind of situations, right? So if you want to handle this kind of situation, you could do something like this. For example, just to give an example, we don't need to do exactly like this. Whoa, that's a huge indentation for me. Catch. Let's say I'm making it explode just right away to see some things. And now I'm going to say throw new error. So I'm going to throw it again, right, to the parent with the following error on async example. Just to put something there, doesn't need to be like that. We can do the following. We can say these are the JavaScript templates, a.message, right? So we go like this. Error on a single example, that's going to have the oops that comes from this one, which is the error that has happened with the message here. And now you have another message which is going to be more rich at some point, saying, okay, the error has happened in a certain async example, right? So this is with the try catch. And you can see also the then and the catch that comes from the promise that comes as a return of this example, right? I hope that you liked the video of today, and if you did so, just give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a lot more videos on this one, so have a good one, and till next time.